You today because we get to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, ancient oils. And I think this time of year is a time that really causes us to reflect and especially think about those gifts that were given 2,000 years ago. And so I think that's where I want to start today, is with frankincense and myrrh. So you can see that I've got my frankincense all set up here. In fact, when you see here, this is a burner that they use in Oman today. This was a gift that was given to me a year ago, where they put a little burner underneath, and this is a typical burner that you would see in a home in Oman. And they use frankincense every single day and night. They'll burn this. They use it to scent their clothes, their hair. They believe that frankincense helps to protect their home, keep any negative energy out, all the positive energy in, and really believes that it helps their family stay healthy and strong. And so I love that even today that frankincense is still very much a part of their culture. And part of their heritage. They'll also take the frankincense resin tears, and they will chew it, or they'll drop it even in water and allow those volatiles to come out of the resin tears into the water and drink it to keep a calm belly, just to keep strong through the change of seasons. But when you look at these resin tears, that's what's actually come from the tree. So they will score the tree, and the tree will basically bleed, so it'll ooze, and then the resin will crystallize, and they'll go back and they'll chip those resin tears off of the tree, and they'll go back about 3 or 4 times, a couple of weeks apart. And each time they score the tree, these resin tears get bigger and bigger. But it's really important that they not score the tree more than once a year. Or I guess harvest the tree, because they'll score the tree about 4 times, but not harvest the tree more than once a year. And that's something that we're really working with in Somalia and other parts of the world to make sure that those trees stay nice and strong. But when you think about frankincense, it is the oldest supply chain in the world. So I should think about that for just a moment to really understand the antiquity of this beautiful oil. And myrrh really pairs right along with frankincense. So the frankincense trail is a 2,000-mile trade route, and it dates back to approximately 500 BC. And it would take them approximately 60 days to go along that Horn of Africa, which would start in the mountains of Oman and go all the way up to the shores of the Mediterranean Sea and then beyond. And of course they had ports both for sea and for land. So not only would it go along with the camel caravans, but this would also be exported by ship. And so because of this, really put Oman in a position of power, because that was the homeland of the Sakra frankincense, and the whole world wanted it. And so they were able to trade for just about anything they wanted. So now as we think about this time in antiquity, right, which started 500 years before the birth of Christ. So think about the gift of the Magi. And why was it that these wise men, right? There were kings and rulers from the Middle East. Why is it that they chose to bring frankincense, myrrh, and gold to the baby Jesus? And so when you really go back to understand why they were using these precious oils and resins at that time, frankincense likely was symbolic of his royal birth and even deity. And myrrh likely symbolized his mortality. But when you think about what they used these resin tears for at that time, they were considered very powerful medicinals in antiquity. And really for a millennia, frankincense resins have been sought after by kings and queens and rulers and people of very, very high positions. It was highly prized by civilizations as diverse as the Egyptians, the Assyrians, Persians, Macedonians, Greeks, Romans, Cushites. And so it's pretty amazing, really, to realize how many people sought after these amazing resins. So dōTERRA sources 4 different species of frankincense. So we look at the boswellia, and I have 3 of them here to share with you. So here we have the sakura. So you look at the sakura, this is actually what I have here. It's all the sakura that comes from Oman. And you can see that beautiful, beautiful resin tier. And then we have, coming from Somaliland, we have the Karteri. So this is the Karteri, and you can see that the tiers are a little bit smaller here than the sakura. And then they also have the Furiana, and the Furiana gets very, very big and long. Furiana is probably the most expensive of all of the frankincense species. And then we also source the Papyrifera from Ethiopia. So this one here, you can see it's a little bit darker in color, and the edges are a little bit rougher with the Papyrifera. So you might say, why is it that dōTERRA sources 4 different species? Why not just focus on one? When you look at these 4 species, they are actually quite similar when you look at them from a chemical standpoint. However, when you really start to look specifically at those molecules within the frankincense, you realize that there's different chirality with each of the different species, which means you're getting unique benefit with each species. And so as we bring them each together, you get greater complexity and greater benefit. We also see the insensyl acetate, which has some amazing benefits similar to that of boswellic acid. Now we know that boswellic acid exists with the resin tier, but it does not come through in the essential oil. So if anyone ever claims there's boswellic acid in their essential oil, it's not a true essential oil because it is not a volatile. So it's not going to come through the distillation process because it's the molecular weight of that particular compound. But when you look at the insensyl acetate, it has the same amazing benefits. But here's something really cool about insensyl acetate. For those of you that kind of like to geek out on the chemistry, like I do, it has a molecular weight of 348. You might say, well, why is that cool? Well, most essential oil constituents have a molecular weight ranging between 122 and 272. So it's a very, very heavy molecule with spectacular benefits. And so that's one of the reasons that we blend these 4 together, because we get something special from each and every species that we bring together. When I think about frankincense and how they really depended upon this oil to use to protect their bodies, to protect their minds during this time of antiquity. They used it to also burn as incense in the temples to really bring them closer to deity, and really used it for the spiritual aspect as well. And so today, when we look at where we source these oils, we source them from the same place they came from antiquity, from Oman, from Somaliland, from Ethiopia. We really want to honor the heritage of the ancient precious oils, and are so proud to play such a key role in really bringing Eastern and Western medicine together at a time such as this. So now let's go into myrrh and understand a little bit about myrrh. Although myrrh was still part of this trade route, really came from the same time as frankincense, the benefits are different. They're very unique. So when you go back, there's a land of Punt, and that was believed to be modern-day Somaliland. But Queen Hatshepsut, who was the first female pharaoh, right? Is that cool? She was the first female pharaoh. But she was so in love with frankincense and myrrh that she actually got permission to she had a full ship go over and bring back the uprooted trees of myrrh, an entire shipload of myrrh trees, back to Egypt where they were transplanted. But of course, you look at Egypt today, she had both frankincense and myrrh trees brought in, but you'll notice that they don't live there today. They don't thrive because these 2 oils thrive in very, very harsh a very harsh environment. So when you go into Somaliland, it's very, very hot. When Dave and I went there in 2014, we went in about July time, it was 130 degrees Fahrenheit. It was very, very hot. When you look out, it's very harsh desert, and these trees will grow with little to no soil. They'll literally grow out of rocks and need very, very little moisture in order to thrive. But I think it was really quite amazing when you look at that history with Queen Hatshepsut. And it was quite miraculous that the Puntites actually approved their trees to be sent over to Egypt. So there's also the Syrian and Greek legend about the Syrian king Theseus' daughter. And her name was Mira. And of course, King Theseus must not have been a very nice man. Because they believe that Mira was transformed into a tree, which is now called the myrrh tree, to get away from her father's really desire to take her life. And so they believe that the resin tears that come from the myrrh tree are Mira's tears. So we've got a couple questions coming in as we are live today. One of the questions from Carrie is frankincense okay for pets? Now, I live on a farm. My husband's a rancher. We have lots of animals at our house, lots of dogs, lots of cats at our house too. And frankincense is really an oil that I go to. Frankincense I consider is the Swiss Army knife of all essential oils. It's the most versatile of all essential oils, where you can use it for just about anything and everything. So when I think about frankincense, do I use it on my dogs? Absolutely. Depending on the size of the animal, you probably will want to dilute it, right? If you've got a very large dog, may not have to use as much dilution, but when you're using a very small dog or even a cat, you're definitely going to want to use just a little bit of oil, blend it in with fractionated coconut oil. I say 1 part oil, to maybe a drop of oil to a tablespoon of fractionated coconut oil. Rub it on the paws, along their spine, on their ears is a really, really great way to use it. But I use frankincense every single day. I use it for my skin. I use it on the bottoms of my feet, along my spine, to really make sure that I have a robust immune system. I use it on my kids. It's a very mild oil, so it's a really safe one to use with my kids. I like to take frankincense and put it up on the roof of my mouth to really help me with memory recall, to make sure that my thoughts are clear and focused for the day. I feel like frankincense just keeps me younger. There really isn't anything that you can't use frankincense for. If I've been out running or working really hard out in the garden, it's a wonderful one to put in lotion or fractionated coconut oil and rub right on location. Have another question. How long will frankincense last? Right? Is there an expiration date? Now, because of the regulatory obligations that we have, because frankincense is what's called grass, generally regarded as safe, which means you can use it internally, we do have to put an expiration date on the label. However, right, with frankincense, with myrrh, any of these oils I'm going to talk about, these ancient oils, they get better with time. Right? As long as you keep them away from, keep the cap on, keep them away from extreme temperatures, hot or cold, they're just simply going to get better over time. And so there really isn't a time where you need to throw your frankincense away. You can continue to use that as long as you keep it in good location. So now to continue on with myrrh. Myrrh was actually made into, you can see myrrh here, as you kind of think about what those gifts might have looked like, right, as those magi traveled so far, right? We don't know how many of them there were, but in ancient writings, it looks like it may have taken them even up to a couple of years to get to the baby Jesus, to bring these gifts to him and to understand how meaningful of a gift they were at that time. But myrrh is actually a really sticky resin. These resin tears have dried out, but it's a very sticky resin. And so you'll see, even with your bottle of myrrh, it's going to get maybe a little bit sticky, but they would make it into a salve, and so they would use it for wounds, for any type of skin condition. It's a really great way that they like to use myrrh. They also used it for the cremation process, in religious ceremonies. It was also used in traditional Chinese medicine, and mostly for female issues. So if you think about the Greek legend with Myrrha being a female, it makes sense that you would use myrrh for any type of support for the female reproductive system. There are many references to myrrh in the Bible. Most scholars believe that stacked, right, which is of Latin and Greek origin, is in fact myrrh. And stacked is an ingredient in the Holy Tabernacle blend. So is frankincense. So when you think about some of the uses for myrrh, I use myrrh. I've been using it daily because I love to make a myrrh tea. So I'll take hot water, I'll add about a teaspoon of raw honey to it, and I put in a couple of drops of myrrh, and it's amazing just to soothe the throat, the vocal cords. Also, if you have that desire to cough, right, it actually diminishes that desire to cough. I'll rub it over my abdomen or on the inside and outside of my ankles just to support female reproductive system. It's fantastic for oral care. So you can put it on your finger, and I actually really love the flavor of myrrh, but you can rub it like right up along your gums. You can also gargle with it. You can mix it in with a little bit of water and mix it in your mouth and then just swallow it. It's great for spot treatments, for anything skin, right? It's absolutely fabulous for, and also for hair. I love to add myrrh with a little bit of ylang ylang, put it in with my leave-in conditioner, and it just really kind of gives your hair that glossy glow that you're really looking for. Looks like we have, let's see, Tricia wants to know, what does it smell like? These oils of antiquity, they smell ancient. They just really, it's hard to describe them. They're very, you've got a lot of your base notes, so they're very rich in aroma. Some of them even have a little bit of a bitter note to them, but I just think they smell yummy. You get some of your pine notes also with the alpha pinene that are in there. Alpha pinene is the main constituent in frankincense. With myrrh, you've got a lot of your sesquiterpenes, so it's going to be very soothing to the tissues, to the mind, which is great. Also asking Rosalinda, what about using it on kids? These are the oils that I go to with my kids. They're easy to dilute, easy to put on the bottoms of their feet, along their spine. My kids really gravitate to them. My 18-year-old son has always had sensitivities to essential oils. And so there are certain oils that I've never been able to use on him since he was a baby. Peppermint is, as an example, I can't use with my son Keaton, but I can use frankincense all day long with him. He uses frankincense for everything, and I love that I know that frankincense is his go-to. So now, you ready? We're going to go to some of these other ancient oils we're offering right now during the holiday season, the Ancient Oils Kit. And this is just a dream come true for me because I've wanted this to happen for so long, and finally, we were able to make it happen for you. So I want to start with galbanum. Now this one is, I was in Oman last year with our Boswellia sacra partner, and we're driving through Oman, and our sourcing team had been looking for galbanum for quite some time, and they weren't able to get it because it comes from Iran. They're sanctioned so that we can't import the galbanum that comes from Iran. And I asked him, do you know anyone that's growing it? And it was so cute to see Ashad's eyes just light up. Like, he got so excited, and he said, I have a friend who has successfully been able to grow it in Turkey. And I said, does your friend know how to distill it? He said, I don't know, but this is a dream for me. Like, I've always wanted to distill galbanum. And so he was able to call his friend, and sure enough, we were able to get the resin tiers because it's an umbelliferous plant, which means it's shaped like an umbrella. and they score the plant kind of similar to how they would the frankincense or myrrh tree, right at the base, right above the root system. And then you have the resin that oozes out, it crystallizes, they chip it off, and that's what is distilled into the oil. And so he was able to have the resin tier sent to him in Oman, and he was able to successfully distill it and create this most amazing, amazing essential oil. It's, it definitely has a green note to it, even a little bit of a bitter punch to it. You pick up definitely some of those pine notes, but it smells like such an ancient oil. It just takes you back in time, 2,000 years. So when you read in the writings of antiquity, they believed galbanum to have mystical healing powers. In most of those major civilizations, it was one of the ingredients in the Holy Tabernacle blend. So we have both frankincense, myrrh, and galbanum in that Holy Tabernacle blend that God gave to Moses on Mount Sinai, that was placed there at the altar. So when you think about the purpose of the Holy Tabernacle blend, it was to prepare entry into the Lord's tabernacle. So the properties of the oils that are included in this incense blend were purifying, they were cleansing, and they would really take one to a higher level of consciousness preparatory to entering the Lord's tabernacle. So galbanum was a fixative in many of the famous perfumes that we see today, like Chanel No. 19, Must by Cartier. Hippocrates wrote a lot about galbanum, and Pliny actually refers to it having extraordinary curative powers. I think it's so fun to go back to these ancient writings. See, it was referred to in Greek mythology as the sacred mother resin. And you see, just as frankincense and myrrh were used in many different ancient civilizations, so was this precious oil. It was treasured by the Egyptians as a sacred substance, and it's believed by most historians to have been the green incense of Egyptian antiquity, which is written about so much. And so I think back then, like, they were probably kind of stinky, right? They probably didn't get to bathe as much as we get to bathe today, right? Probably had a lot of raw sewage and garbage, that were there in the cities. And so these incenses became very, very precious to them, and really helping them to create perfumes, to help them smell good, but again, to burn as incense in the temples, and they were very, very sacred to them. And even look at like the ancient Roman civilizations during times of war, they actually had to ban the purchase of unguents and incense because they were so expensive. They were so prized. We know that frankincense had a higher value than gold at this time of antiquity. They actually had to ban the people from purchasing them. So the Egyptians would import mass quantities of galbanum from Persia to use in these religious ceremonies. They'd also use it in their embalming purposes and really turn to it as their medicine. So anyway, when you look at galbanum, you're going to get some of those. It's high in pinene as well as limonene, so you're going to get some of those pine notes that you would expect to see in your conifer oils. So let's see, what else do we have? So when you think about it, you also have your beta pinene, and so it's going to be really great to use topically, definitely in those times when you're working out, or you might have some tenderness in your joints or your muscles. It's going to be a really, really great one to go to for that. It's going to be very cleansing to the emotions, cleansing emotionally as well as spiritually. So it's just a fantastic, fantastic, beautiful oil. So many benefits. All right, let's go. Let's see to our next one. And they also have, here's a cool thing that I forgot to mention with galbanum. So you have a really cool thing about its chemistry. So you have a constituent called 3-trans, 5-cis, 1,3,5 undecatrine. You got that? So you don't find that really in any other essential oil, at least not in any notable amount. And it's really only because of the chemists that we have here at dōTERRA, right? When you look at Dr. Setchell, Provod Setchell, he's amazing at really having the library, one, to identify these very rare constituents, but also just to have that wisdom and know-how to be able to call some of these out. You'll find this in very, very trace amounts in lavender, but most chemists would never pick that up or even know what it was, but dōTERRA does. But we also, again, we talked about that beta pinene, and just really helps with that mental acuity and temporary relief of discomfort. So it's great for blending as well. As you know, it's been used in perfumes for millennia. So really, really wonderful. So now let's go to, I'm actually going to go to hyssop. All right. So I've got hyssop here. Now notice hyssop is in a little baby bottle and it's got a CRC cap on it. So we're going to talk about why that is the case here in just a minute. So hyssop is mentioned many times in the Old Testament, like 10 times in the Old Testament, twice in the New Testament. One is a reference back to the Old Testament. And so why was hyssop so precious in antiquity? Why did they specifically call it out so many times in the Old Testament? So it really starts at Passover, right? Hyssop was used for ceremonial purposes and specifically called out at time of Passover. So it's not any surprise that dōTERRA sources are hyssop from Egypt, where it all began. And the final mention is at the time of the crucifixion of Jesus. And both very for ceremonial purposes. And you think about why hyssop was used, right? It was used as a purifier, as a protectant, also for purgative purposes, right? Cleansing purposes, preparatory purposes. So the Greek word hyssopos also, and the Hebrew word azab, it's a holy herb, was used for cleaning sacred places. Are our bodies sacred places? I would say yes, right? Even though they would use it as that, preparatory to go into sacred places in the temples, our body also is a very sacred place, needs to be cleansed. So hyssop was an evergreen garden herb and a member of the mint family. So it's commonly used in cooking, also used as an aromatic condiment. So it's intense. It's very intense, right, when you look at the aroma, so you smell it, but it's also kind of picks on more of if I can get that CRC cap open, I'll tell you what it smells like, right? Maybe I can't open it. Well, this isn't good. You can tell we're definitely in alive. All right, so you're just gonna have to believe me here on this one, right? Has kind of a minty aroma. But again, just like the other ancient oils, it does kind of take on a little bit of a bitter note, but for me, it's minty because it has such high concentration of 1,8-cineol. So it's going to smell similar to like a eucalyptus. So hyssop was strewn into the floors anciently to purify the air. And the Romans believed it to protect them from the plague, and also made an herbal wine out of it. So really, really great way that they used it that way. Galen, Hippocrates wrote a lot about it, and it's really fun to see some of their comments about it. But anyway, I'm really excited about this particular hyssop because it's been really hard to source. I've really had to go through a lot to be able to source this particular hyssop for you. Our sourcing team told us it wasn't possible, which is why it's in a 2.5 mil bottle instead of a 5 mil, because we couldn't get quite enough to do a full 5 mil. But when you look at hyssop, there's actually some toxicity that's related with hyssop. So this particular hyssop does not have any toxicity, right? Which is really, really important for us to note. So why is it, right, that other hyssop has had that toxicity? So if you can keep moving on, that would be great. So try to open that up real quick. Okay, So the pino camphone type of hyssop is where you had your toxicity issue. And we were really, really careful to make sure that we were sourcing a hyssop that was not the pino camphone type, right? So you have no concern of toxicity with dōTERRA's hyssop. And that's what I love about having all of the scientists, the chemists, the physicians that we can draw upon here at dōTERRA to know that everything we have is not only going to give you amazing benefit, that not only do we have that potency, but you can be assured that it's going to be 100% safe. So you also look at hyssop, and you do have to be a little bit careful with this one. It will stimulate menstrual flow. So for anyone that is pregnant or is considering becoming pregnant soon, I do not recommend that you use hyssop. Again, it will stimulate menstrual flow. I also recommend that anyone that suffers from epilepsy, just stay away from this oil. Just avoid hyssop. But anyone that isn't in those two categories, you're going to love this oil. We've got 55% 1,8 cineal. As you remember, I referenced that as the main constituent in eucalyptus. And so it's going to be really great to open up the airways. It's going to be a fantastic purgative, right? It's going to be very cleansing, both emotionally as well as physically. It's going to really stimulate and support a healthy scalp, especially for young ones that might still be in school around a lot of kids. It'd be a great one that you can add in with your shampoo and really keep a nice healthy scalp there. It's also going to be very invigorating, very energizing. So just a really, really fun one. I know a lot of people that have been using myrrh are just addicted to it, wanting to know how they can get more. So I would love for those of you who have already used these ancient oils to write into the comments. Like, we want to hear your experience with these oils and how you're using them. And you notice I just keep taking the caps off and like just smelling them because they're just so yummy and they're so different from any other essential oils that we have. So now I'm going to go to myrtle, common myrtle. So this one you still find growing wild in Upper Galilee. So coming out of Israel, it's mentioned in biblical times as one of the choice plants of the land and are really symbolic to God's promised blessings. And we know that obedience always had to come first before those promised blessings would follow. Myrtle is also one of the 4 blessed plants used in the Jewish festival of the tabernacle. So there's a lot of ancient symbolism with myrtle. Prosperity, hope, love, justice, and recovery. So obedience before prosperity is something that you really think about. Like, as we go about our lives in, as you use myrtle, are we really being true to who we are? Are we being true to our calling? Are we being authentic? Are we really kind of honoring the life that we feel that we've been given and really taking it on as a gift? And are we really inviting those promised blessings that can come into our lives? So we look at Greco-Roman antiquity. Common myrtle was considered sacred to Venus and was used as an emblem of love in wreaths and other decorations. Aphrodite, the great goddess of love and beauty, was often depicted wearing that myrtle wreath on her head, if you remember that, with those beautiful flowers and those aromatic leaves. During the Renaissance, I just can't stop smelling this. So during the Renaissance, the evergreen myrtle became symbolic for love, right? And really everlasting love. And so you see, like, even today, the British royals will continue to put the myrtle leaves into their bouquets, their bridal bouquets. So now when you look at the chemistry of myrtle, you're going to have 20% myrtentyl acetate. So this is an ester, kind of similar when you look at like a lavender, right? When we look at linalool acetate or lavendulyl acetate, myrtentyl acetate is very specific to myrtle, which is where it got its name, right? But you also have like 20% alpha pinene, which is the key constituent that you find in frankincense. So you're going to have a lot of the same benefits that you would get from lavender or from frankincense with myrtle. So you can use it in all of the same ways. Really, those are the two most versatile of all essential oils, right? So you can expect that that same versatility to come through myrtle. So you can use it right topically for any area that might be feeling some temporary discomfort. You can use it on the bottoms of your feet to help you have a really great night's sleep. You can breathe it in to help you cope with any type of stress that might be happening in your life. It's going to be a very protective, invigorating, cleansing, restorative blend that's really going to invite those feelings of everlasting love, of hope, really coming into your life of restoration. So now let's talk about our final one, shall we? So this is cistus. You might say, well, wait a minute. I don't remember reading about cistus in any ancient writings. Well, there's many different names for cistus. You have rock rose, you have labdanum, and then you also have what most scholars agree, known in biblical times as the revered rose of Sharon, right? So you might remember from the Song of Solomon, that's where you're going to hear about the about cistus. So the shepherds actually discovered cistus, or the rose of Sharon. There are these tiny little flowers that would get stuck in the beards and the coats of their sheep. And so as they would come back in and they would brush their coats, and they realized that these little flowers produced an oil. And it was very thick, it was very dark in color, very, very potent. But as they started playing around with it, they realized that it had some amazing, amazing properties. And so it was used by ancient Egyptians as an incense, which isn't surprising, right? They used it in perfumes. It was also often used in royal and spiritual ceremonies. So I love this oil to blend with. Like if you are an oil connoisseur like me, you've got to have this in your wheelhouse. Like if you're wanting to make your own perfumes and salves and just create those beautiful aromas, like this is such a beautiful balancing agent. It's got those scrumptious base notes, and a little bit goes a long, long way. So the main constituent, right, you kind of see a common thread through many of these ancient oils is alpha pinene, right, which we know is just so good for cellular protection as well as cellular renewal, and especially for those cells up in our brain, right, and really helps us, for me, just to have a better outlook on life, a better memory recall, better focus. But you also have some very specific constituents in this one. It's viridfluorine, and then also viridfluorol. And they're very specific just to cistus, and it's probably likely to give it that really, really deep floral aroma. I've never smelled anything like this. You might notice we have labdanum in some of our other blends that are used, but it is the cistus or rose of Sharon. It's all one and the same. But for me, as I smell it, it really helps me get rid of any of those negative emotions, those things that might be holding me back, so that I can have a better outlook on life. So it's no wonder that, right, it was in that Song of Solomon, and really referring back to that rose of Sharon. So there are many other oils that you can really go into some of those ancient writings, but we couldn't put them all in the kit because we wanted to make sure we kept it at a price point that could be afforded. We could have added spikenard certainly in here. We could have added cassia. We could have added cinnamon, cardamom, many of our other ancient oils, but we feel that this particular set is very complete. It's very special. These are very, very sacred oils, and I hope that you can really take them to heart, treasure them, right? They're very sacred. A little bit will go a long way. and you'll have fun blending and mixing with them and just seeing why those ancient civilizations really prize these special oils. And for this month only, right, the month of December, as our gift to you, with any purchase of, and we go off of a point system when we do some of our promotions, it's 200 PV. You get a free bottle of frankincense. It's a full 15 ml bottle, free, and a retail value of that is over $90, and the wholesale value is $68. So if you're getting your ancient oils kit, get it while it lasts, right? Because I don't know that we'll ever be able to offer these oils again. Like, some of them are staples with doTERRA, like frankincense and myrrh, but others, I don't know if we're going to have accessibility to them again after this. So make sure that you get it while you can, and then pick up your free frankincense this month. And I just hope that you know how much we love and appreciate you. And we really wanted to give this gift of kings this month. So I wish each and every one of you a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays to every one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of the doTERRA family. And I hope that as we enter 2021, that we can really focus on taking our health and our emotions and our mindset to a whole new level, so that we can go out and bless the world in the way that only we can. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for being with me today.